He is standing in front of you in the checkout line. Older jacket, simple watch, a basket with basic groceries. Nothing about him suggests anything unusual. You would never look twice. But if you could see his bank account, the number would genuinely stop you breathing. $650 million. And he is buying his own groceries. This is not a story about being cheap. This is a story about the most powerful financial strategy almost nobody talks about, and the people quietly living it all around you right now.
Meet Richard. Richard is 61 years old. He lives in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, the same house he bought 30 years ago. He drives a 10-year-old Honda that he maintains himself. His neighbors think he is a retired teacher. His friends think he does okay. His own relatives have no idea. Because Richard does not own a yacht. Richard does not own a penthouse. Richard does not post anything on social media. Richard does not wear anything that signals wealth. And yet, Richard's asset portfolio, built quietly, consistently over 3 decades, is worth $650 million. Not in one dramatic investment, not from a lottery, not from a single business that went viral, from a collection of businesses and productive assets so ordinary, so unglamorous, so completely beneath the attention of anyone looking for excitement that nobody ever noticed they were quietly generating extraordinary amounts of cash. Richard is not famous. Richard is not impressive at a dinner party. Richard will never be on the cover of a magazine. And that, as you are about to understand, is not an accident. That is the entire strategy.
Here is the question that unlocks everything in this video. What kind of business generates that kind of wealth without any of the glamour or visibility that most people associate with success? The answer is simple, and it will surprise you. Boring businesses. Genuinely, completely, embarrassingly boring businesses. Richard's portfolio looks like this. He owns a waste management company serving 3 mid-sized cities under long-term municipal contracts. He owns a commercial laundry operation serving hotels and care facilities across 2 states. He owns a network of self-storage facilities in secondary cities that nobody glamorous wants to live in. He owns a regional pest control company with 12,000 recurring residential accounts. He owns a parking structure in a busy downtown area that generates income 24 hours a day, regardless of what the economy is doing. None of these businesses would impress anyone at a networking event. None of them would make a compelling social media post. None of them have a product launch or a celebrity ambassador or a trending hashtag. But here is what every single one of them has. Something that exciting, glamorous, high-profile businesses almost never have. Predictable, recurring, consistent cash flow. Month after month, year after year, in good economies and bad ones. Because people do not stop producing waste when the economy slows. They do not stop needing clean laundry. They do not stop needing storage. They do not stop needing pest control. They do not stop parking their cars. The businesses that serve basic, unglamorous, unavoidable human needs are the businesses that generate the most durable wealth over time. Richard understood this early, and he was never distracted by anything shiny. Richard did not build $650 million from one boring business. He built it by doing the same thing repeatedly, finding another boring business, acquiring or building it carefully, stabilizing its cash flow, and using that cash flow to fund the next one. This is called portfolio scaling, and it is the engine behind almost every large fortune that was built quietly rather than dramatically. Here is how the logic works. Your first business generates modest cash flow, enough to live on, but not enough to feel rich. Instead of spending that cash flow on visible upgrades, you direct it toward acquiring a second cash-flowing asset. Your second business generates its own cash flow. Now 2 streams are running. You repeat the process. 3 streams, 4 streams, 5. Each acquisition is funded partly by the cash flow of the ones before it. Over time, the portfolio begins to generate more money than any single business ever could. Not because any individual business is exceptional, but because the combined, consistent output of multiple, boring, reliable businesses compounds into something genuinely extraordinary. This is not exciting. There was no single moment of breakthrough. There was no dramatic success story with a clear climax. It is just discipline, applied repeatedly in the same direction for a very long time. And that is exactly why most people never do it. Not because they cannot, because it does not look impressive while it is happening. One of the most important characteristics of Richard's portfolio is something that most investors never think about deliberately: resilience. What happens to Richard's businesses when the economy contracts? When markets become uncertain? When people tighten their spending and businesses start cutting costs? Almost nothing. Because the services Richard provides are not discretionary. They are not luxury. They are not optional. Waste still needs to be collected. Hotels still need clean linens. And families still need pest control. People still need storage during life transitions. Cars still need to be parked. The businesses that survive economic difficulty are not the ones with the best product or the most exciting brand. They are the ones solving problems that do not go away when times get hard. Richard deliberately built his entire portfolio around this principle. Every acquisition was evaluated against a single question: will people still need this when things get difficult? If the answer was yes, it was worth pursuing. If the answer depended on prosperity, he moved on. This single filter, applied consistently over decades, is a large part of why Richard's net worth continued growing through every period of economic difficulty, rather than contracting with it. Resilience is not an accident. It is a design decision made at the beginning of every investment.
Now let us talk about the part of this story that most financial content never addresses: the social dimension of wealth. Because Richard's decision to live invisibly is not just a lifestyle preference. It is a calculated, rational response to something very real. The moment wealth becomes visible, it attracts things. It attracts requests from people who were never close to you before. It attracts opinions about how you should spend what you earned. It attracts resentment from people who measure their own worth against what they can see of yours. It attracts relationships built on what you have rather than who you are. It attracts a constant, low-level pressure to perform your success for an audience, to keep the car upgraded, keep the house impressive, keep the lifestyle visible enough to justify the reputation. Richard watched this happen to several people he knew in his early career. Smart people who built real wealth and then made it visible. And he watched the visibility consume them. Not their money necessarily, but their peace, their clarity, their ability to make decisions based on what was actually good for them rather than what looked appropriate for someone of their perceived status. Richard made a different choice. He decided very early that the most valuable thing his wealth could buy him was not a bigger house or a faster car. It was the freedom to live exactly as he chose, without performing anything for anyone. Stealth wealth, the practice of accumulating significant assets while maintaining a modest, visible lifestyle, is not about deception. It is not about hiding from the world or being ashamed of what you have built. It is a deliberate defense strategy against the very real costs that come with visible success. Think about what visible wealth actually costs, beyond the obvious expenses. It costs you the ability to know who values you versus what you have. It costs you the mental space to make financial decisions based on logic rather than the pressure to maintain appearances. It costs you the freedom to drive the car you actually prefer rather than the car your net worth is expected to demand. It costs you relationships where people engage with you honestly rather than through the filter of what they think you can do for them. Richard's Honda is not a symbol of poverty. It is a symbol of complete financial freedom. He drives it because he genuinely does not need to drive anything else to feel secure in who he is. His security does not come from what other people see. It comes from what his bank account actually says. And that, the ability to separate your identity completely from your visible possessions, is a level of financial and psychological freedom that most people never reach. Not because they cannot afford it, because they cannot imagine it.
Here is something about Richard's life that most people would not expect. It is not always easy. There is a specific weight that comes with carrying significant wealth invisibly. Because the invisibility is not just external, it shapes every relationship and every interaction in ways that are genuinely complex. Richard cannot always speak freely about his perspective on financial decisions without revealing more than he intends to reveal. He sometimes watches people around him make financial mistakes that he could help them avoid, but offering help would require explanations he has chosen not to give. He carries the full responsibility of managing extraordinary complexity, legal structures, asset management, long-term planning, alone or with a very small circle of trusted advisors, while maintaining a surface life that suggests none of it exists. This is not a complaint. Richard chose this, and he would choose it again. But stealth wealth is not a fantasy. It is a real way of living with real trade-offs. The freedom it provides is genuine and extraordinary. The isolation it sometimes creates is equally real. Richard accepted both, and he will tell you, without hesitation, that the trade was worth it. Because the alternative, performing wealth for an audience while it quietly controls you, was never a life he wanted to live.
I want to end with a specific image, because I think it captures everything this video is about better than any financial concept could. Richard is in a hardware store on a Tuesday morning. He's in the plumbing aisle. He has a broken fitting at one of his properties, and he's going to fix it himself. Not because he cannot afford to hire someone, but because he genuinely enjoys solving the problem with his own hands. A younger man is in the same aisle, frustrated with the prices, on his phone checking his account before he commits to a $30 purchase. He glances at Richard. Older jacket, simple watch, nothing impressive, and feels a quiet pity. He assumes Richard is a man who has not made it. He has no idea. Richard finds the fitting he needs, adds it to his basket, and heads to the checkout. $650 million. Plumbing aisle, Tuesday morning, no audience, no performance. Just a man completely at peace with exactly who he is and exactly what he has built, and needing absolutely no one else to see it, to know that it is real. The most successful people you will never meet are hiding in plain sight. They are in the checkout line behind you. They are driving past you in ordinary cars. They are fixing their own sinks and eating simple meals and living lives that look completely unremarkable from the outside. Not because they failed, because they understood something that most people never learn, that real wealth is not a performance. It is a foundation, and the most powerful thing that foundation can buy you is not the freedom to impress people. It is the freedom to stop needing to. Build the unglamorous businesses. Collect the boring assets. Keep your lifestyle honest and your balance sheet extraordinary. Let the world underestimate you. That is not a loss. That is the strategy. I am Mr. Max Wealth. The quietest people in the room are often the ones who have already won. See you in the next one.